In the future, humanity no longer depends on fossil fuels to produce electricity, but instead on an extremely massive energy source, the sun. That solar energy is already managed by a company called Helios, which builds solar power plants spread across all lands, believing that solar energy is clean, safe, available everywhere, and will never run out. So people do not need to worry about running out of electricity to use their favorite electronic devices, such as electric cars, electric motorcycles, and even tablets. The main advantage of solar energy from Helios is that if people charge any electronic device for just 5 minutes, they can already use that device for the whole day. One of the users of that solar energy is a young astronomer named Sun Yang, who lives alone in an apartment unit, along with his personal AI assistant named ELSA. Usually, Sun Yang becomes a guest speaker to discuss solar energy and has already worked with the boss of the Helios company, named Wang Yin. One day, Wang Yin tells him that later in an area called District 4, people will switch to solar energy, while Districts 1, 2, and 3 have already used solar energy before. Because many people admire him, Wang Yin is asked what his life goal is right now, and he answers that he wants to make human civilization even greater by fully controlling the sun and giving endless energy to everyone. Sun Yang himself lives in District 1, where he usually goes to the supermarket to buy his daily needs. And because times are now more advanced, Sun Yang only needs to use his smartwatch to pay, so the balance in his digital wallet is automatically deducted. As a result, people feel comfortable with this advancement, but their sense of concern has drastically decreased when someone gets mugged. Sun Yang sees this, but he is more focused on the sunlight, which seems to be acting strangely. The problem continues the next day, when Elsa tells him that there is bad news he must know right now. Sunlight drops by 15% and will continue to decrease. Feeling that this is dangerous, Sun Yang immediately calls Wang Yin to discuss the decreasing sunlight. From that discussion, they relate it to the incident of a star, let's just call it star 123, which has already disappeared before. So Sun Yang asks whether the sun will have the same fate as star 123. This is not answered by Wang Yin, who instead asks back, if today were the end of the world, what would Sun Yang do? He answers that he will find a way to survive. Therefore, Wang Yin tells him the location of his private house between District 1 and District 2, and tells him to go there if he can survive. Knowing there are 8 minutes left before the sun disappears, Sun Yang asks Elsa where the nearest place is to see the sun clearly, and she answers that his neighbor has a large window. So Sun Yang goes there and directly goes to the window, which of course makes his neighbor, named Chenmu, angry. But her anger immediately stops when she sees the strange-looking sun, while the media reports that it is an amazing sight that could be witnessed once in a lifetime. And finally, as a result, a total blackout happens throughout the city, making everyone panic. Sun Yang thinks that humanity is already finished, but it turns out the lights turn on again thanks to Helios's emergency batteries that activate automatically. At that moment, Chenmu is calling her parents, but suddenly her phone dies because there is no signal. Therefore, Sun Yang goes to his computer and learns from Elsa that there is an electromagnetic disturbance causing cell phone signals to die. Sun Yang then searches to find out what will happen to Earth next, and learns that the Earth's temperature will drop to minus 17 degrees within a week. It could even reach minus 70 degrees in a year. Not only that, oxygen will slowly run out, which will automatically cause all living things to slowly die. And finally, Earth will become a frozen planet again like in ancient times. At that moment, Chenmu still believes that the signal still exists, so she wants to borrow Sun Yang's phone, but he immediately tells her that everything using solar power can no longer be used. Even the satellite system also requires solar power. But Chenmu sees that the electricity in Sun Yang's place is still on. So Elsa explains that Helios's emergency battery is currently active, but will only last for 1 day. This makes Chenmu anxious about her parents. So Sun Yang suggests that they bring all emergency funds, then emergency supplies, and escape from the city. As a result, Chenmu becomes frightened, especially since she has not used cash for 3 years. But Sun Yang cannot help with her money problem, and finally, she drives him out. Sun Yang then goes to the supermarket to buy various emergency supplies. And on the way, he sees many people still relaxing after the sun has already disappeared. But the situation is different when Sun Yang arrives at the supermarket, where many people panic to buy all sorts of needs, while Sun Yang is more interested in buying a magazine that has a map. Because all signals are dead, Customers cannot pay with their digital wallets anymore. But not Sun Yang, who has already prepared emergency funds to pay. And finally, the supermarket becomes chaotic. When he is about to return to his apartment, a criminal notices that Sun Yang is holding money. So the criminal hits Sun Yang until he faints, and finally, his money is stolen. Sun Yang then wakes up from fainting the next day and is told by Elsa that he has already slept for more than 22 hours. Upon arriving at the apartment, it is revealed that Sun Yang's leg is injured, so he treats his wound while being disturbed by loud banging on the door. Once Sun Yang finishes bandaging his wound, suddenly the door is broken down by a looter, but luckily, Chenmu comes to help. She admits that she has been waiting for trains, buses, and public transportation, but none of them can serve passengers in this chaotic situation. Since Sun Yang is the only person Chenmu knows, she asks for his help again so she can meet her parents, and she suddenly remembers that she has an electric car that she has not used for a long time. So I'll try to avoid looters. Sun Yang and Chenmu go to the car in the basement, until finally they manage to escape from the looters. When they arrive at a toll road, they see that all the lights in the city are already out and many people are trying to flee to a safe place, which causes Sun Yang and Chenmu to be stuck in a very long traffic jam. Along the way, Sun Yang asks whose car this is, and Chenmu answers that it actually belongs to her ex. And because she is used to using gadgets, Chenmu has difficulty reading the map and does not have any writing tools when Sun Yang wants to mark the map. So he uses Chenmu's lipstick instead. After determining the destination to the area between District 1 and District 2, they go there, while Chenmu wants to know more about Sun Yang and suspects that he's going to meet his girlfriend. This makes Elsa immediately tell that Sun Yang is 25 years old, single for 25 years, once again, single for 25 years, and has no girlfriend, which makes Chenmu laugh when she hears it. Chenmu then still feels curious about Sun Yang's goal, but he refuses to tell her that, which makes Chenmu think that Sun Yang is a stiff man. Feeling curious about the government's actions for this event, Sun Yang turns on the radio and hears an emergency broadcast that the government is still investigating why the sun can disappear. So for now, they enforce emergency protocols by providing aid to residents in all 4 districts. Sometime later, Chenmu wants to relieve herself, so Sun Yang stops at a rest area, with their officers providing aid for residents. But not long after that, the situation turns chaotic, so all the residents scramble to take as many supplies as possible, and finally, the situation becomes uncontrollable. Sun Yang and Chenmu then continue their journey, and after arriving at Wang Yun's house, Sun Yang and Chenmu meet 2 strangers who love traveling, and they say that they find this house when they're looking for a charger for their car battery. After finishing introductions with Wang Yun, the 2 strangers say goodbye to continue their travels, and will keep traveling until their lives end. At that moment, Sun Yang calls Elsa, but it turns out she is no longer active after her battery runs out, which makes Sun Yang feel sad because he remembers Elsa always being with him all this time. Sun Yang then speaks privately with Wang Yun to tell him that Sun Yang wants to leave because he does not want to stay here just to wait until his life ends, while Wang Yun prefers to remain here even though he is already rich. Sun Yang remembers that the Earth has already gone through 5 mass extinctions, and each time that happens, only about 30% survive. So he does not understand why Wang Yun chooses to be on the side of the 70%, which Wang Yun answers by saying that humanity is already at the point of no return. This makes Sun Yang curious about how the sun can disappear. So Wang Yun reveals that before, his system detected something dangerous appearing, which turns out to be a wormhole emerging in the middle of the sun. As a result, the wormhole swallows the sun, and finally, the sun is gone. This incident is also the same as the disappearance of star 123 before the sun, which had been discussed by Sun Yang and Wang Yun, but they did not know at that time that it was because of a wormhole. Since the sun is now gone, all planets leave their orbits from the sun, causing the solar system to break apart and scatter, meaning Earth and other planets have already moved away from the sun. This is hard for Sun Yang to believe, that a wormhole can exist, and he suspects there is a more advanced civilization that wants to take energy from other stars, but Wang Yun cannot say anything about that. He then suggests that Sun Yang look for a safe place in District 4 and get a mechanical watch as a replacement for his digital watch, because he feels confident that if he keeps moving, the clock hands will not stop. After finishing his business, Sun Yang and Chenmu set their destination for District 2, but when inside the car, Sun Yang feels curious about Chenmu bringing a potted plant, which she believes is the toughest plant in the world. They start their journey to District 2, and along the way, they see a space shuttle taking off, suspecting that it belongs to rich people who want to go to another planet, while the poor stay on Earth and enjoy the end of the world. Sometime later, they see another person asking for help. So Chenmu wants to help that person. But Sun Yang refuses to help, because he thinks the current situation and conditions do not support saving others, which Shenmu responds to by saying that such thinking is no different from animals. As a result, they argue, but then Shenmu puts the argument aside when they arrive at her parents' residence, and she invites Sun Yang to come in. But he refuses the invitation, saying that he wants to go to District 4, and finally Chenmu leaves. But a moment later, when Sun Yang continues his journey, he realizes that Shenmu's potted plant is left behind. So Sun Yang returns to give the potted plant to Chenmu. Upon arriving inside Chenmu's parents' apartment unit, Sun Yang sees an aquarium starting to freeze from the Earth's decreasing temperature, before he meets Chenmu looking gloomy. Sun Yang asks where her parents are, which Chenmu answers by saying that they are already died, making Sun Yang feel puzzled. But that puzzlement turns into shock when Sun Yang enters her parents' bedroom and finds that they have already died. It is revealed in a flashback that they died because looters broke into the unit, but they left a heartfelt message for Chenmu, making her remember her childhood with her parents. Realizing that Chenmu is now alone, Sun Yang invites her to go to District 4 together, hoping they can survive there. Along the way, Sun Yang feels something is wrong with the car, so he gets out to check its condition. But he and Chenmu do not realize that there are several other people who want to seize their car while begging. So Sun Yang quickly gets back into the car, and finally, he manages to get away from those people. But a while later, Sun Yang feels his leg starting to hurt again, which Chenmu suspects is because his leg wound is already infected. This makes her want to be taught how to drive, which Sun Yang agrees to. So he begins teaching Chenmu how to drive properly until she finally becomes fluent in driving. As a result, Sun Yang can rest. But sometime later, after he wakes up from his sleep, he becomes shocked when he sees a road sign with District 3 written on it. Therefore, he opens the map to confirm it. And eventually they truly have gone the wrong way, because at the previous intersection, Chenmu should have turned left toward District 4, but instead she turned right toward District 3. Seeing that the car battery is almost empty, they go to a public EV charging station, but it turns out the station is already closed. So they go looking for another charging place and find a house that provides electricity charging services, feeling curious about how the person in this house still has electricity. Once they find out that there is coal that can produce electricity, an elderly couple arrives and welcomes Sun Yang and Chenmu with drinks. After the old woman tells them that coal can be found here in District 3, Chenmu wants to drink her beverage, but Sun Yang stops her from drinking it. He feels suspicious that the drink might be poisoned, but the old man gives proof that the drink is safe. The old woman then asks for their car keys so the old man can fill up the battery, but since Sun Yang is still suspicious, he wants to go along with the old man. The old woman then tells Chenmu that she has hot water in the bathroom, which makes Chenmu interested in soaking her hands. And finally, she remembers again her past moments with her parents. Not long after that, she hears a loud noise from outside, and it turns out the toilet door is already locked by the old woman. It is revealed that the old man and old woman actually turn into bad people who want to seize Sun Yang's car, so they can escape by taking advantage of his injured leg. Once Chenmu manages to break out of the toilet, she sees that their car is already taken, and finally, Sun Yang and Chenmu do not have any vehicle anymore. As a result, Sun Yang's leg becomes more injured, and they have no choice but to walk to reach District 4, which is still far away. While enjoying the spectacular view of the stars, they keep walking and walking until they decide to rest, and finally, they eat instant noodles that Sun Yang brings from the apartment. This makes them happy, especially while being treated to the magnificent view of the Milky Way galaxy above them. They then see a car behind them, so they ask for a ride, but they are flatly rejected, making them feel what it is like to be rejected, just like the people they have met on the road. Sometime later, they arrive at a factory that has black smoke, and it turns out their car is parked there. But before they can approach the car, there's a group of bad people who shoot another person until his life ends, so Sun Yang and Chenmu hide behind a car. As a result, the group becomes suspicious of noises from the car. So Sun Yang asks Chenmu if she's sure she can drive, and after she says yes, Sun Yang sacrifices himself to be captured by the bad people. But they do not want to end Sun Yang's life. Instead, they want to use his strength to work as a coal processing laborer at the factory. At first, Chenmu feels scared of the bad people, but then she gathers her courage to save Sun Yang by bringing a pepper spray. Inside, Chinmu sees the boss of the bad group, who says that the outside world is dangerous, which is why he thinks the factory is the safest place. But the workers must keep working to process coal continuously, and in return, he will provide the workers with the basic needs they require. The boss then says that as long as they stay together, they can continue human civilization as one family, which Sun Yang replies is impossible, because he thinks far ahead and believes that eventually the coal supply will run out someday. He also brings up the fact that the boss already shot the person he called family, which makes the boss angry. So he orders his men to lock Sun Yang in a room. Chinmu follows them and finds out the door is locked with a padlock. So she uses a nearby pipe to break the padlock until Sun Yang is finally freed. As a result, Sun Yang considers Chinmu crazy for daring to come here, but before he can scold her, the boss arrives at Sun Yang's room. Yet he does not see Chinmu there. It turns out she is beside Sun Yang. And finally, the boss's eyes are sprayed with pepper, allowing Sun Yang and Chinmu to escape from the boss and his men while trying to avoid their gunfire. Once outside the factory, Sun Yang and Chinmu immediately get into the car, and finally, they successfully escape from the factory. Sun Yang then borrows Chinmu's lipstick to mark a sign on the map toward District 4. But when he hands a map to Chinmu, she is shocked to see that there is blood on the map, a sign that Sun Yang was shot by the bad group earlier. So Chinmu quickly drives Sun Yang to a safe place until they finally arrive in the District 4 area, where there is white smokes beyond the hills, strongly suspecting that it is sulfur smoke they can smell. As a result, Sun Yang realizes that geothermal energy still exists from the Earth's core, and the Earth's core creates a great amount of energy through nuclear fusion. So all that energy can support human life for billions of years. Chinmu then thinks that beyond the hill there is a hot spring, so they quickly go there. But at the same time, the Earth's temperature is already getting colder, starting to freeze their car. And to make it worse, their car battery already reaches 0%. And finally, the car stops completely. Sun Yang then tells her good news and bad news. Starting with the good news, they still have an oxygen tank, so they can survive for a few more hours. Then for the bad news, Chinmu will spend the last few hours on Earth with Sun Yang. But Chinmu sees that this bad news can actually be good news. They then see two planets in the sky, clearly, Mercury and Venus, which are trying to get closer to each other. This makes Sun Yang say that he feels happy when seeing the stars above, while everything below has no meaning. But lately he suddenly realizes that there is actually something on Earth that is interesting to him. Chinmu. As a result, she feels happy to hear that, which makes her remember her past before meeting Sun Yang, when she felt her world had already fallen into darkness. But all that changes when she meets Sun Yang's neighbor, and when the sun disappears, that is when she feels she sees light for the first time. Sometime later, while holding hands, Chinmu keeps calling Sun Yang's name, but he does not answer her calls. It turns out he is already unconscious because he keeps losing blood, along with the hands of his watch having stopped. When she feels deep sadness, a car approaches Chinmu, but this time the car does not just pass by. Instead, it stops to help her. It turns out the car belongs to the two strangers who love traveling. And recognizing the car that Sun Yang and Chinmu used, they help them get into the stranger's car. As a result, they all arrive at the hot spring, and finally, the hands of Sun Yang's watch become active again. There is an announcement from the government that they are upgrading construction at the Geothermal Nature Reserve and will soon provide underground houses for everyone. At this time, the Earth has already become an orphan planet, wandering through the vast interstellar space. But miraculously, based on Earth's trajectory, humanity is being carried toward their neighboring star system, the Alpha Centauri system. Last Sunrise movie recap ends with the Alpha Centauri star system, which will become the new home for humanity, and finally, there will be 3 suns already waiting for them. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.